Hi friends, welcome to the Scapegoat Club. My name's Jess. I'm a psychotherapist and I'm a relationship coach, and I talk a lot about family abuse, family estrangement. And I really want to talk in this video about the role of other, wider family members and what happens when they know that something's going on, but they either don't speak up or they take the side of the people who are abusing us. It can be really hard, and there can actually be a lot of anger towards these people. So I want to dive into that in this video. So I think something that can be really hard for us to grapple with, and to be honest, something that I'm still trying to work through myself, is when there are other people in our families, especially adults in our families, when there's abuse happening towards children, when there are other adults around who might be aware of what's going on, why don't they speak up? Or if it's later on in our lives when we're adults and our siblings are adults and we're no longer living within that family unit, and so we have now the ability and the independence to speak up and say when we think that something's not right. Why don't people stand up and have our backs? Why don't we have more allies when there is this ongoing abuse and ongoing injustices happening within families? What's going on here? Because I think that we can feel, especially when we're children, or especially when there's a power imbalance, that there are other people, say aunts, uncles, older siblings, who could have said something, who actually could have influenced those people who are making our lives so difficult. There can be a lot of resentment as to why didn't they just say something? Why didn't they try and help me when I needed that help, when I couldn't help myself, when the power and the odds were stacked against me, or when they knew better? Why didn't they speak up? So let's try and get into that. So I have 5 reasons why I think this might happen. And the first one is that I think that people can really try and dive into and believe in this idea of family harmony, because it's easier than having difficult decisions, and it's easier than looking at what can be some really ugly truths. As we all know, there is this idea that family is always a good, supporting, loving place. And I think people can hide behind that. They can also believe that rocking the boat would be too dangerous. It might be that in these difficult families, that they have actually seen and maybe experienced a little bit of pushback, a little bit of punishment, a little bit of nastiness themselves. And they don't want to see that, and they don't want to experience it again. And there may also be a really deep fear of causing irreparable harm to family relationships if they do speak up. So really this desire to keep the peace overrides, I think, what can be like these kind of kernels of truth that they really don't want to look at. They don't want these seeds of ideas that there could be some really difficult stuff going on in the family. They don't want to water them and have them grow and then really see the truth behind what's happening. So they decide to just keep it level and keep this idea of harmony going so that they don't have to look at the harder stuff. And so building on this idea, I think that actually my second reason is that some people choose not to speak up about abuse because they really fear family estrangement. And I think I'm going to go in even further. It's not uncommon that they fear estrangement because they've already experienced it. As we're all becoming very aware, family estrangement is way more common than people really have talked about, or I think people think that we've talked about before. And it makes sense that this estrangement happens in tricky families, and it's the same in my family and the same with a lot of people that I work with and I speak to, that we are not the first estrangers. This isn't the first rodeo. There's actually a history of family rifts, and sometimes we can have family members who have experienced that rift, maybe at a younger age, maybe they know someone else who they've been cut off from, and they really want to avoid that kind of harm and that kind of hurt happening again. They're scared of estrangement, so they don't want to speak up. Maybe they think that if they speak up that they will also end up potentially being ostracized or estranged or cut out. And that is a very, very scary place to be. I think for those of us who are in that situation, it's awful. And so maybe it's fear for themselves again. And maybe they don't even recognize it and won't even admit that, but there could be a fear that they will be cut off too, and they don't want to go there. In some situations, often with siblings, there can be a lot of upside for a certain family member to disappear or to be out of the picture. If someone will financially gain from us being estranged from the family, then why would they speak up? Really, if it's in their best interest, and perhaps we don't even have a very close relationship anyway, then it's not going to be sensible for them to speak up and to try and put some wrongs right, to try and stop abuse. Why would they if they're going to get something out of it? It's sad to say, but I think really the financial incentive can often deter us from doing what we feel that is morally the best thing to do. Another reason for not speaking up is basically what I'm going to term as emotional laziness or denial. Confronting abuse, having difficult conversations is hard. It can be emotionally very taxing. It can be exhausting. So if you're not directly in it, if you can avoid it, if you can pretend it's not happening, if you can distance yourself from it, why would you go into that space? It takes a lot of bravery and a lot of guts. It's really hard. And I'm not saying it's right to be emotionally lazy. I'm not saying it's right to have this kind of Disneyfied thinking that we're all going to live happily ever after, or that this abuse isn't happening, or that people aren't really getting hurt. But it's a survival mechanism that we all have to sometimes turn our heads away from bad things that we see happening. Whether it's happening on the news, or it's some turmoil or some difficulty or some suffering in another part of the world. We all do that because we don't have the capacity as human beings to fix and save everybody. We would get exhausted. And so I think that can just extend into families as well when it's not actually happening to us, and there are other ideas and ideals and narratives and half-truths that we can hide behind, that, oh, things weren't that bad, and well, there's another side to every story. There's a lot of ways that we can become emotionally lazy. We can gloss over things to keep going and to avoid the really tough stuff. And the last reason I got on my list for why people wouldn't speak up about abuse is that it's that some people are really peacemakers. That's their job. Maybe that comes from them growing up in difficult families where their job was to try and heal rifts, to try and stop mom and dad fighting, to try and get more harmony between an older and a younger sibling. Maybe that was just their job, to be the family peacemaker. And if so, it's going to be very hard for that person to abandon that role, to not be that person, to not try and see a bit of truth on either side, and to try and pull people together, and to try and blend, and to try and say that things weren't that bad and that maybe there's a different side again. I think that is a different thing to being emotionally lazy, because it really comes from a place of seeing but wanting to really try and do the very best. But I also think that it can be misguided, and I would hope that a peacemaker, a well-informed peacemaker, isn't emotionally lazy and is actually going to say, okay, I was wrong, I didn't see the whole picture, and I can actually see that, yeah, there is an imbalance here, there is a problem, there is a real harm ongoing, and that is something that doesn't fit under my role as peacemaker, or that I can see that for peace to happen there would need to be an end to that kind of harm that's being done. And so I think those are those reasons why people can look like more passive bystanders around this abuse. Some people would call them flying monkeys if it comes to a narcissistic type family. Whatever the reason, though, I think that if we are the abused party and we can see other people who aren't coming to our aid, who could do something, who have that ability, it's a really, really tough pill to swallow. It's like, I'm drowning here and you can just walk into the water and save me. You're taller than I am. You have the ability to hold me up and you're not doing it. And so I think if this is happening to you, then it's okay to acknowledge that there is anger there, because there is injustice and that does hurt too. And I actually think it's really important for us to say, this person should know better, can see it, has the ability, and chose not to. And so then I think it's okay for us to say, okay, well then that person or those people, then even if they're not actively doing the abuse themselves, they don't get to be in my inner circle. They're not my safe people, because they've shown that they don't have the moral backbone and integrity and that solid foundation that I need to heal and move forwards. Then on the other side, I'm going to say that we need allies, and that the only way, I think, to try and change these kind of abuse patterns, especially when they're ingrained and they're ongoing in family or in other aspects of our society, it is really important to not turn a blind eye and to stand up when we can. And if there isn't that danger to us, if we can stand up and say, hey, I really don't see what's happening is right, then please speak up. Please, if you can, and if it's not within your area or there needs to be a professional involved, call a professional. Let the professional decide. If you're not sure if it's harmful or abusive, especially if it's happening with children, call somebody and say, hey, if it's even an anonymous call, say, hey, this is happening and I'm not comfortable with it, but I'm not sure and I don't know quite what to do. Let somebody else know, alert somebody else. But if you can and you have got some kind of influence, then I'm going to urge everybody out there, let's be a little bit more emotionally brave and show up to those difficult conversations a bit more. Just try a little bit more and see what happens. Because I think that even just a little bit of influence coming from a different space could really, really impact some people in these situations. But maybe that's just my over-hopeful thinking, but I do see that there are a lot of comments that I get from these videos that they are helping, and they are helping people who both have been abused, and also some people occasionally say, oh, I realized that I could have done something better too. And so I'm proud of you all for getting through this. Please take care, and I will look forward to talking to you again soon. Bye for now.